Today we're looking at Stephen Douglas. Hello, welcome to the Daily Bellringer. Please don't forget to subscribe and take a look at the questions down in the description. Stephen A. Douglas, nicknamed the Little Giant, was a politician and congressman that would be a huge figure in American politics throughout the mid-1800s as the issue of slavery and Western expansion was at the forefront in the American experience. Although Douglas never was elected president, his influence would play a major role in the direction America would take. Stephen Douglas was born April 23, 1813 in Brandon, Vermont, to Stephen Douglas Sr. and his wife Sarah Fisk. When Douglas was only 2 months old, his father died, and soon he, his mother, and his older sister moved to a farm just outside of Brandon. As a child, Douglas attended the local elementary school, and by his early teenage years, he began to apprentice as a cabinet maker. While working as an apprentice, Douglas began to become very interested in politics. Especially, he began to follow the political career of Andrew Jackson. By the age of 17 in 1830, his family moved to western New York, where he began to attend the Canandaigua Academy. Douglas began to have ambitions of becoming an attorney and began to study under Levi Hubble, a local attorney. However, just 3 years later in 1833, Douglas decided it was time for him to strike out on his own, and he headed west. Despite not completing his studies, he believed he could establish himself more easily as a lawyer in western states. Douglas briefly stopped in Cleveland, Ohio, Louisville, Kentucky, and St. Louis, Missouri, on his way to eventually settling in Jacksonville, Illinois by November of 1833. The following year, Douglas was admitted to the Illinois State Bar as an attorney. Douglas continued his fervent support of Andrew Jackson and the Democratic Party, and by 1835 had decided to abandon his law career and focus more on politics. In 1836, he was elected to the Illinois State House of Representatives. While serving in the House, he met fellow Illinois House member Abraham Lincoln. The two would have a personal and political career that would many times pit them against one another. In fact, Douglas briefly courted Lincoln's future wife, Mary Todd, during this time. Douglas's political career continued to rise as he was appointed the Illinois Secretary of State in 1840, then was elected to the Illinois Supreme Court in 1841, and then to the United States House of Representatives in 1843, and then finally Douglas was elected to the U.S. Senate in 1847. During his time in Congress, Douglas supported annexing Texas and going to war with Mexico, and he was one of only 4 northern senators to reject the Wilmot Proviso banning slavery in newly acquired territories after the Mexican-American War. In 1847, he married Martha Martin, and together they would have 2 sons. Martin's father, soon after their marriage, died, leaving Douglas a large plantation and over 100 enslaved people in Mississippi. Douglas, being a northern senator, did not want to be seen as a slave owner, but did want the profits from the plantation. So he hired a manager for the plantation and continued to operate it while the enslaved people remained in slavery. In 1853, Martha died while in childbirth along with Douglas's newborn daughter. A few years later, in 1856, Douglas married 20-year-old Adele Cutts. In 1850, Douglas took the lead in getting the Compromise of 1850 pushed through Congress, which was a set of bills that admitted California as a free state, but also included the notorious Fugitive Slave Act. Douglas's leadership in getting the bills passed established him as one of the leaders in Congress, and standing at only 5 foot 4 inches tall, earned him the nickname the Little Giant. Being a strong supporter of Western expansion, in 1854, Douglas pushed through the Kansas-Nebraska Act, which organized the territories of Kansas and Nebraska so that railroads could begin construction west. However, the issue of whether slavery would be allowed in these new territories was not clear, and Douglas argued that popular sovereignty, or in other words, allowing citizens in the territories to vote and decide for themselves about the issue, was the solution. This idea infuriated many in the country, as now slavery could expand anywhere. One person who was infuriated was Republican Abraham Lincoln, who challenged Douglas for his Senate seat in 1858. The two would engage in a series of debates across the state of Illinois that would become legendary, as Douglas argued for popular sovereignty and allowing slavery to expand, while Lincoln argued against any expansion of slavery. Douglas won the election, but the debates thrust Lincoln into the national spotlight. A few years later, in 1860, Douglas won the Northern Democratic nomination for president, as the Democratic Party had split between Northern and Southern factions by this point. In a four-way race against Republican Abraham Lincoln, Southern Democrat John C. Breckinridge, and Constitutional Union Party candidate John Bell, Douglas only received 12 electoral votes, coming in last among the candidates, with Lincoln winning the presidency. Douglas returned to the Senate and fought to try to keep the Union together, as the nation was clearly on a course to civil war. However, just as the first shots of the Civil War were being fired, Douglas contracted typhoid fever and died June 3rd, 1861, at the age of 48. So with that, hopefully you learned something, and thanks for watching. Alright, quick shout out here to the students at Pioneer Middle School in Wenatchee, Washington. Thanks for watching.